Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another Simple 60 workshop. I'm your host, Brent Halfwassen, Milwaukee Small Business Coach on behalf of the Idea Collective. And as many of you know, if you've watched any of these before or been on these before, we are special thanks to our sponsors, Quick Trip and Bank 59, who have done a great job. Today, we are going to talk about how we sell our value. Value is something that is often elusive. It's difficult to understand. It's hard to put a dollar on it. People understand price, but not many people understand value. And then the challenge comes, once I understand my value, how do I price it? We are going to start to dive into this. We cannot get into it in great detail. If you're interested, I'm actually doing a 4-hour workshop tomorrow with American Family Insurance and their Dream Bank, where we're going to go over value and then some pricing strategies around that. So today, what I want to do is just start to go down the road a little more of like, what's a value proposition? How do I start to understand where I fit relative to other people, where my superpower is, where I'm uniquely different? Unique is that key word. And then how do I start to position that to some of my folks? So at any time, as always, I see the chat's already getting active and I love that. Drop in your name, information, a little bit about you in the chat. If you have questions that come up, I'll be monitoring the chat from time to time to be able to take some of those questions and answer them. And we're usually a small enough group, or heck, who cares? It's the Idea Collective. Drop the mute. Come on. Always do your sarcastic remarks and any questions or comments that you have at any time. So without further ado, let's dive right in and figure out which slides got my big screen up and let's get going. So here we go. All right, so yeah, we're doing the sell your value. Hopefully everyone see the screen right now. Hopefully it says sell your value. I'm seeing some heads. I love that. So it's a workshop for entrepreneurs and owners. And the point here again is there's a lot of ways to price your business, but most people haven't really figured out exactly what their value is and what their value proposition. You may not even know what a value proposition is, and that's okay because we're going to talk about that today. So again, I'm Brent Halfwassen, Milwaukee Small Business Coach. In our business, we've strived to help small business owners and entrepreneurs transform their hard work into hard cash. Why? Because I'm tired of seeing so many people who are amazing at the skill, craft, or trade work their absolute butts off and not have enough to show for all their effort. So if you're interested in getting some time with me, there's a link there, bit.ly/coach with Brent. Let's get a little bit of time, talk about your business, see how I could help you out in any way. Okay, a little bit about who we work with. Look, if you're struggling with profitability and keeping your cash, I want to have a conversation with you. It is really demoralizing to bring in $100,000 in revenue. And when you go look at that bank statement, it does not have the number of zeros on that you want it to have. Okay. You launch, but you found reality doesn't match your plan. That happens to all of us. We come up with a plan. We got an idea. We're going to pivot. We're going to shift. And all of a sudden, where'd all those customers go that I was promised to have? Like, they're not sitting around. Okay. Financial and operational roadblocks to your success. One of the keys that I have is I can help understand what your goals are and figure out what you can change operationally in order to make that, because most people are doers. I happen to see, when I see a financial statement, it tells me a story and everyone's like, Brent, you need better books to read. But the fact is, for a lot of folks, I want you to be a doer. And so I want to help you figure out what are those next doings that you need to do in order to hit your goals. And then finally, difficulty telling your story. When we get in here about value proposition, it is almost all about telling your story and maximizing its impact. Sales, business is all about relationships. Relationships, I believe, are about stories. And if we're not telling stories and we're just getting into the thing that we love to do, that we're great at doing, we tend to miss people and we miss that opportunity to make the connection that's essential and have some impact. So if I can help you with any of those, do reach out. You can find me on the collective. You know where to reach me, brent@halfwassen.com. Book some time, all that, and have fun. Here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to work to get to the workshop. I don't know if I'll have time to do that, but I can leave you with some pointers, and I can actually, I'll drop a link in there where you can go and download a resource to help you out. But I want to understand the value proposition today. I want to define our competitive uniqueness, and you're going to hear me talk about uniqueness a lot. That is part of your story. Everyone has a unique aspect they go about. We heard Kristen check in. There are lots of designers in the world. There's only one Kristen Pearson and what she does and how she does it. But she has to be able to present that in a way that someone says, I'm about ready to latch onto your services. Okay. And then we're going to try and workshop a little bit on a unique value prop. More likely, full disclosure, I'm going to drop a link and I'm going to let you guys go and grab that and download that at your leisure and get into that. I think you're going to find it helpful. Okay. Critical question. Critical. If you don't take anything else away, you can feel free to take a slide shot of this page if you want. Screenshot, I won't tell anyone. What is the uniqueness of your product and service? And you got to have both, because there's, like Brent's wild and crazy, and sometimes he wears weird shirts. Like that could be unique about me, but that doesn't necessarily get me. Will it give me a competitive advantage in the marketplace? Right? You got to have both. Sometimes there are things that give you a competitive advantage, but it may not be unique. And sometimes there's things that are unique. I want you to find the piece that has both. Okay. And when we talk about the worksheet, and what I may do is pull it up, go through it quickly before I send you off to go do the work. But there's ways we can analyze where we are in terms of competitive scale on some different categories. And I think that's going to be really, really important for everyone here. So what is a value proposition? You may have heard this word. You may have heard it called a unique selling proposition, or just a selling proposition, or value prop, or USP. Okay, all of these are what's uniquely best about my product or service. What is uniquely best? That thing that is different than anyone else. I'll tell you what I've come up with for me, because of the category that I try and serve. And I said it before, I want to work with entrepreneurs who feel like they're working their butts off, but they're spinning their wheels, they're sinking in quicksand, they're not getting enough to show for it. What I bring to the table is insight and empathy with a large dose of humor. Because what most people get when they ask for coaching, in my opinion, for the folks that I'm trying to reach, they get a lot of strategy, speeches, and saucy remarks about where they need to go with their business, and that list of like, here's the 10,000 things you can do to make yourself better. Well, I tend to think it's a hard spot to be in, to be an entrepreneur, to be working super hard, and you're going to want someone who's got some empathy and humor to go along with the insight. That's what I think my value proposition is when I work with people, and why I think people love working with me. What is it for you? That's what we want to start working on today as we dig in there. Okay. So it's what separates you, your unique value proposition, or USP, or selling proposition. They all mean the same thing. Is what separates your business from your competitors. And I'm going to add another word. It usually separates you from your competitors. For those who've been with me on some other topics, you'll know I don't actually like the term competitor, because I don't think it's a complete list of what we're doing here when we're in business. For me, competitors is limiting, because we got to look at the alternatives. If I can go back to the design for a second, people can go into Canva if they want and try and create stuff. You can be like me and pull stuff together still in PowerPoint and then print it as a PDF and try and pretend you know what you're doing. Right? There's a lot of ways to do design which go beyond just quote unquote competitors. And so your value prop really needs to address the alternatives. But when we look at competitive spacing, a lot of times, by the nature of the word competitive, we want to see where we are compared to our competitors. Those are people doing the same or similar thing to us. But I want you to look at alternatives, because a lot of people think, hey, what I am doing here is so unique and so different that there's no one else who's doing it, so I don't have any competitors. Well, that's sort of like, that's silly. That's just not how it works. So I want us to think about that. So why is a value proposition important? Okay. When you attempt to become known for everything, you don't become known for anything. Or as Pat Miller's been known to say, when you try and be all things to all people, you're nothing to nobody. Okay. So we want, when we're getting in here, we want to be able to stand apart. We want to be different. Okay. Right. The Idea Collective is doing the 5 and Thrive. Right. That's kind of where they want their value prop to be. They want to help businesses get to 5 years, being open for 5 years. And for those who've been open 5 years or more, they want you to be able to thrive. That is become their raison d'etre, the reason that they are doing what they do in the Idea Collective. But I think it's part of positioning what their value proposition is. So what is ultimately important, and how is it going to position them? Okay. The key to creating our value proposition is you have to create a value proposition. You have to know your customers and your business. We have done some know your customer type work here before, but in order to be effective with the value proposition, you have to know who your customer actually is. And I know that may sound silly, but I know a lot of people who don't know who your customer is. And I would say by show of hands, or maybe not show of hands if anyone's going to be embarrassed, if the answer to your question of who my customer is and you say everybody, or some version of everybody, or nearly everybody, or everybody except these two people because I don't like them, you don't know your customer. Your customer niche has to be so narrow. And narrow is good because we are not selling, like there's only a few products I can think of that are truly probably universally bought. And they're like, toilet paper comes to list. How it comes to mind. However, if you go to the grocery store and look at the toilet paper aisle, there's not just, amazingly, there's not just one brand of toilet paper. Somehow people have figured out how to carve out their own niche in the toilet paper aisle such that you have an entire aisle, 500 linear feet of toilet paper. Now, who thought we needed so much toilet paper in the world? Until COVID, no one thought that. Then everyone thought you really needed toilet paper. But my point is, even the toilet paper folks have figured out there's a niche. Who's going to buy Charmin versus who's going to buy Quilted Northern versus who's going to buy Palms versus whatever. Each of those is actually playing to a specific niche because they got detailed, and then they figured out what's the value prop that they're going to get into. So something as ubiquitous as that all of us need still has a spot where they're figuring out their value proposition. So you have to know who's your customer and your business because you want to know the value. Not, again, it wasn't just what makes me unique. What's going to give me a competitive advantage relative to my customers, something your customer is going to care about. I tend to think that my customers are going to care about some empathy and humor because everyone's out there working their butts off. It's a little bit intimate and embarrassing to be able to say, yeah, all my friends are like, oh, I'm running a small business. You must be crushing it. And you're like, really? Because I got $500 last month and I can't pay rent. Right? That is hard to go tell someone that and then ask for help to be able to move forward. And so that's why, for me, that's my value prop. And I don't know what yours is. Okay. Any questions around customer? I want to pause there because knowing your customer and knowing the problem you solve is so important that I don't even want to hesitate on that. If anyone has any questions about that. Because almost literally the rest doesn't matter. Okay. Clear as a bell. Thank you, Carmel. I love it. I'm always like being clear as a bell. Here we go. Build your value prop. Here are the pieces. We're going to solve it right now, and you'll never have trouble again. No, I'm just kidding. This is an iterative process. What you come up with today may change tomorrow. You may use it for a while. What I recommend, by the way, before we even get in here, whatever you come up with, try and integrate it. You'll feel like it's better than what I had, and it's not where I want it to be. That's an okay place to be. That's sort of like the entrepreneurial journey. Better than what I had yesterday and not where I hope it's going to be tomorrow. But start integrating and working it because things will continue to develop. You will continue to get better. You will continue to understand more what it is you want to bring on. Okay. So building your value prop. Here we go. I just talked about this. You got to define your target and ideal customer. If you've not done some strong work on that recently, do a little bit more. If you've already done this work, one thing I want you to do is make sure that you have emotion words in there around your customer. It is not, I almost don't care when people tell me the demographics, age, gender, income, where the geography, where they live. Most of that stuff doesn't really actually define your ideal or target customer, in my opinion. I suppose it does depend on your industry. There are a few industries. If you're doing nails and manicures, then some of those demographics are absolutely clear. But most of the time, you want behaviors, attitudes, lifestyle, and influences. Those are the things you really want to know. And those are super heavily influenced by emotion. So if you don't know about the emotions that your customer feels, what emotion you're solving for them, what emotional struggle they're having, because people buy on emotion. We use all the facts and figures about Brent's been in business. He's worked with over 700 entrepreneurs. Well, no one hires me because I work with 700 entrepreneurs. That supports an emotional decision to say, I like Brent. I think he knows what he's talking about. I would enjoy working with him. But why am I going to pay him a whole bunch of money? And then we start putting these cognitive dissonance together and being like, oh, well, he's worked with 700 entrepreneurs. Oh, he hosts a show. Oh, he's a podcast host. He must have some credibility, so I'm going to hire him. The fact is we buy emotionally. We buy from people we know, like, and trust. So if you don't have some emotion words in there on your customer, I'm not sure you're connecting with them as deeply as you want to. I'm not going to keep beating on that one because I'm sure we've talked about customer before, but we may again because it's just that important. Okay, you need to research. Next step, super important. You have to research your competitors and alternatives. You got to know who else is out there, who else is in the space. And here's how I want to define competitors and alternatives. We didn't talk about the problem you're solving for your customer. But once you've identified what that problem is, an alternative is any other way that customer solves the problem. We were talking about design. What do I want? I need a decent looking presentation. What are the ways I can do it? I can do it myself. I can go onto Canva. I can hire someone on Fiverr. I could hire Kristen. I could do all these different things, right? All of those are alternatives. And I've got to know what they all are because I'm going to compare myself relative to that and understand I need to know what my advantages are, but you're also going to need to know your disadvantages ultimately. And we have to remember that, you know, in my case, if there's another business coach that specializes in something in particular, like a particular industry, perhaps, and I am trying to get a client who is in that industry and looking for something specific to that industry, it's not my expertise, I'm at a competitive disadvantage. And I need to be able to recognize that and probably be ready to make a referral rather than try and close the business because I'm building a relationship. And my relationship doesn't end just because I, you know, win or lose the contract. I want that person to be like, dude, Brent was a good enough guy to know to send me to someone else who was more what I needed to be able to solve. Okay. But you got to know your competitors and your alternatives. And surprising number, if I ask people, a surprising number of folks could not list 10 competitors or alternatives to what they do. Most can't list 5. Some people can't list 3. There are a lot out there. And when you don't know what they are, you don't know where your customer is thinking. You don't kind of know what you're selling against, basically. Okay. Next one, here we go. What problem does your product or service solve? You have to know that because as we're getting the value proposition is how do I uniquely solve this problem in a way that gives me an advantage over my competition and my alternatives. Okay. And then I want you to create clear mission and messaging. A good value proposition is really tight. It's not very many words. It has a lot of white space on the page, and that's okay. The best ones can probably go on a billboard. The rule of thumb for a billboard is you get like 6 to 8 words because you're driving maybe the speed limit or faster on the interstate, and you don't have that much time to read it. Your value proposition, which maybe gets incorporated in your tagline or your slogan, becomes pretty much that way because I don't want it to be that long, right? I'm going to provide empathy and insight along with a dose of humor. That's my value prop to you as a small business owner wanting to be your coach. Okay. So when you have clear mission and messaging, that comes in. And honestly, sometimes your mission and messaging becomes part of what makes you unique because you do it for a certain reason that maybe others don't. Because you have a certain goal and outcome you want in the world, in your community, whatever, that others don't. Part of the reason I do my business is because I believe, and why I focus in Milwaukee is because I believe neighborhoods will thrive when businesses are successful, when you have local business options successful in your neighborhood. Then communities can thrive. We can come together. We can enjoy a cup of coffee. We can go to a restaurant. We can shop at a store. We can patronize services. That happens when we have places that we can go and places that we can hang out and spots that we can be. So that's part of my goal, why I focus on Milwaukee is a general rule rather than like, oh, go on the internet, you can sell to anyone. Woo, anyone. I don't like anyone. We already talked about that. Okay. So what's your mission? What's your messaging? Because that may be part of what makes you unique. Okay. Then you got to integrate your value proposition into your marketing. And by marketing, I didn't have more room on the slide to sort of define marketing, but I want it to be anything that you do or say. It's going to be in your LinkedIn updates. It's going to be on your Facebook. It's going to be on your X/Twitter. It's going to be whatever you're using to go outbound. That's where the value proposition shows up because you want to tell everyone why you're unique. Okay. You might have, and by the way, some people do have multiple value propositions because some people, you have multiple audiences you're trying to reach. Some people have users, particularly people who sell to kids is the classic one. They have users, the kid's the user, the actual customer is the parent. Customer is the person who actually pays you the money. The user is the person who consumes whatever it is that you're giving them. So that's very typical when we're working with businesses directing services towards kids. But that's not the only one. If the government's the funder and we're providing a service then to clients out there, you got all those pieces you got to figure out. So sometimes you have multiple value props. Let's just start with one today. Okay. A couple examples, okay, that we can put out here. I found an amazing picture, but I didn't have time to bring it into my but I'll try and describe it for you and hopefully you'll appreciate it. But Starbucks stands for premium coffee beverages, and they're known for the same. Now, I'm not sure that's what you do at Starbucks. I'm not sure it's what you do when you go to any coffee shop. But when they started out, this was the angle they went for. Starbucks became known when like certain like instant coffees were all the rage. And it was the best part of waking up was having something in your cup. If anyone remembers that jingle. I'm not naming any names though. So like at the time, what you could get for coffee was either terrible rehydrated nonsense or terrible pour over rehydrated nonsense. And so Starbucks wanted to position themselves ahead. Now, we know, and I'm going to give Starbucks a lot of credit for that, that now there's coffee shops all over the place. But I argue that people don't go to coffee shops anymore for coffee. I can pay a lot less than $5 to get a coffee. I'm not even a coffee drinker, but I'll buy one for my wife. I can pay a lot less than $5, but would go for other things in the ambiance. Okay. But that was their initial value prop. And that was how they were going to stand out. We're going to do premium coffee beverages and we're going to make the experience premium. Okay. Zappos. Jamie says, not a coffee drinker, but she started to love coffee shops, the new local cafe. I found a cool tea shop, by the way, on King Drive here in Milwaukee. There's lots of places, again, about relationships, spaces, and thriving. And it's cool. But if you do go there, by the way, to do online, a little promo, if you're going there to use their internet, buy a coffee, buy something, please. All right. Zappos. If anyone's bought shoes from Zappos, I've become a believer, right? They're known as the most convenient, customer-friendly online store for buying shoes. Even though they're now owned by Amazon, they've almost not changed any of their features of that. Because when you order from Zappos, the idea was, why go to a shoe store? I will just ship you 17 pairs of shoes. You pick the one you like and you ship 16 back to me. And all the shipping's free. Without the hassle of like, that's not in stock and that doesn't have my color and all that type of stuff. So Basecamp, which is a tool some people use, it's more for larger organizations, used by millions of people as an online project collaboration tool and the top choice of entrepreneurs, freelancers, small business, and groups inside big organizations. So interestingly, even though Basecamp tends to promote itself to some larger companies, if you notice, even in their value prop, they try and make themselves a little edgier by pushing freelancers and entrepreneurs. They try and make it smaller. That it's groups inside of big organizations. It's not that, large Fortune 100 company. It's the group within that. And so they make it smaller. And this is Basecamp was an early version. There's now a bazillion online tools you can use. So they've got a ton of competition. Interesting value prop I saw recently in a picture that I'm going to incorporate in this in the future. It is a company that sells or sold, I don't know if they still do, because I don't know if we do lion taming anymore, but they sold lion taming equipment. Now, you may say, if anyone is familiar with either the concept of the circus or actually haven't gone to the circus and seen this, you're like, what on earth can you do? They had a picture of a lion lying down on the center of the circle, and everything is shredded and destroyed except for this top hat, this whip, and like a pair of boots. And around those three items, which are not destroyed, they actually have a price pointing to it in an arrow, because what they're promoting is durability, when basically it absolutely has to work and durability matters. You're going to want to buy our product because no one wants to be eaten by the lion. Okay. Super interesting. And that was how they positioned their value prop. So I don't know if anything's coming to mind for anyone else right off the top of the head that they want to put out as their value proposition. We can certainly workshop it, or we can keep going through some of these key considerations. But I'd love to hear where people are before we dive into the workshop items. All right, creating a value prop is time consuming, but it's to your advantage in the long run. When you know what it is and you keep putting the value prop out, and if it matters to your customer, they'll start finding you. They'll start identifying with you. It doesn't mean they're going to all flock to you. There's still, rules about how often, when people are ready to buy and when they actually want your services. But you're going to be talking to your audience. And while you're talking to them, because you're using our 6 to 8 words on the billboard, you're doing it up front. And you're not doing it once they've known you for 30 minutes, because no one's waiting 30 minutes for your sales pitch. It's a sales pitch without even pitching. This is who I am and what I do in my value prop. Done. Next. When you go around the table, next time you go around the table and everyone's like, hey, describe who you are. If I just say, hi, I'm Brent Halfwassen, I'm a business consultant. No one even knows what I do with that introduction, number one. For sure, no one's going to hire me, be interested, or ask the most important question you want in any business conversation. Anyone know what it is? I'm going to do a survey. Type it in the chat while I finish. The most important question you want after you do your introduction or any type of description of your business. I want to know the most important question people ask you. I'm going to come back to it when we're done with these key considerations. Okay. While you're doing your value prop, please don't try and please everyone. You cannot, so don't. Okay. What do you do? Okay, that's good, Jamie. I like that. That's not the one I'm thinking of. Okay. Differentiate yourself from the pack. That's the point of why we're doing this. You don't want to be the same. I don't want to be, what's a good example of, sometimes people compare themselves to like the leader of the pack. I'm just like X, Y, and Z and la. There's like a insecurity attached to that. I don't like that. I don't really care how good someone else's hamburger is. There's a reason why you're coming to my restaurant, because I make hamburgers different, or I don't even do hamburgers. I do something else. Right? Differentiate yourself from the pack. That's the point. How can I hire you? I like that question, but usually you don't get that one right away, but that'll be amazing if you could do that, Kristen. Connect so that your customers take action. You want to invite them. The question that I have is, can you tell me more about that? You want to leave them, because you're not giving them enough information in that first, sometimes it happens. Sometimes people are like, dude, you said empathy and I'm sold. I want empathy. Okay, cool. Like, I'm going to drop empathy a lot. But what I want is, that sounds interesting. Can you tell me more about that? Because now you have permission to engage in a deeper conversation where someone's actually interested in listening versus me going sell. And you're just like, stop. Can I get out of this conversation? Make this guy go away. Right? What are your prices? I oftentimes, funny, I get that up front. By the way, I would never answer that question without understanding more about the customer, because I'm selling my value. I don't know how to provide them value yet. So I get people to say, I went on your website, I didn't see your prices. I'm like, well, of course you didn't see my prices, because I don't know what I'm even offering you yet. I don't know what you're asking me to do yet. I don't know anything about you. You don't know anything about me yet. So we can't do that yet. But I want them to ask me for an initial conversation. How do we go? Carmel, thank you. Love to. I will drop. I think I have your email, and I'll drop that in there. In fact, I'm going to drop that in there right now if I can get it. So give me half a second. And if you got to go, I'll find you and email it to you anyway. Thank you. There it is. I'll email it to you when you're off. All right. Any questions about where we're at on key considerations? So any of this making sense? Come off mute. Let's have a conversation.
Definitely makes sense. I like the 8 words type of thing. That's a kind of a challenge.
I'm using the support of ChatGPT to get that.
My best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Good. What else? The part about 8 words, it won't start at 8 words. So if you're anything like me, your first round is like 3 pages, because I'm verbose. And then you just got to keep refining it down and down and down. ChatGPT can help, and our tools like that are amazing. Idea slams, by the way, since we're in the Idea Collective, those are amazing to be able to help people sort it down, because there's some people who are really great at that. But the key is that it can't go on forever, because we don't listen forever. We listen for like 7 seconds, because we've that's why TikTok feeds rotate so fast, because we've lost the ability to actually listen anymore. So yeah, what else is standing out?
Well, I think going back a little bit, when you said to add emotional words, that definitely connected for me. That's part of what makes us unique, but it also helps me just think differently about how to talk about it.
Yeah. No, I love that. What else? One more thought. Emotions. We buy on emotion. Like, there's a couple of key takeaways. If you haven't gotten it, you got to know your customer. You got to know what problem you're solving. You got to know the emotions that are going on. If you know those 3, you have such a better opportunity, because when you talk, here's the deal. When people are talking, blah, 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 you've probably felt that experience when you watch a commercial or something. And you're like, are they talking to me? Like, how do they know my thing that's going on right now? And it's because they hit some emotion, some need, something that you wanted to do right at that very moment. Man, I'm getting hungry. I'm thinking about whatever. And then all of a sudden the right commercial comes on and gets your attention, or the right ad, or the right pop-up, depending on what annoying website you're on. Right. So, but just remember, we buy on emotion, we justify based on facts. We clear that cognitive dissonance of like, oh, I kind of like that, but now I have to figure out, do I actually want to reach in my pocket and get my credit card out? All right, let me pull up. I've got it up. Let's make it bigger. And I will share the screen on these worksheets, and then I will drop the link in, which I've got to go pull. So I'll need a break to go get that link, and I'll drop the link in and you guys can get it. But I want to walk through what's in this worksheet so that you have the opportunity to answer it effectively. So we'll go full screen here. Back in, and then we will share it. Hello, Zoom. Here we go. All right. So some things we got to figure out. Sometimes we don't know what the problem is. Like this happens a lot. This happens a lot. Can everyone see the page right now? Hopefully I should say problem articulation worksheet. Good. All right. Here's what happens a lot. Many entrepreneurs have a thing that they do. Okay. You got a product, you got a service, and people like me are like, well, what problem do you solve? You're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I sell cupcakes, and I like to sell cupcakes, and I'm opening a bakery and I'm doing cupcakes and cookies and bread and everything else. I'm not solving anyone's problem. I'm selling bakeries. Okay. People buy also not only on emotion, but because it solves a problem that they have. I am hosting a dinner tonight, and I don't either feel like cooking bread, I'm no good at cooking bread, and I don't want to serve like, Wonder Bread, so I would like to go buy a loaf of bread. That's actually a problem that I need to solve, so I'm going out to a bakery in order to solve that. I don't want to bake stuff for my kid's birthday, or I want to have better than I can get in the grocery store, so I'm going to the bakery to buy cupcakes. Those are actually tangible problems. People buy because they're solved problems. So for each one of your products and services, I want you to write at least 5 problems it solves for the buyer. That's all we're doing on this sheet. But it's going to start this is going to start to help you get dialed down on what it is that we're actually doing when we are putting together our value proposition. Okay. So we don't need to fill it out now. Again, I will drop the link in shortly here to get that to you, but at least 5. And I got space for you to do it here. So that's fine. So you want to think of all products and service, you want to think in terms of problem solving terms. What are you doing? Okay. And then sometimes look for the least obvious problem, because those are the ones that'll make or break sales. Here's another one to throw in the chat. I'm interested. When I talk with restaurateurs and I ask, when you run a restaurant, I say, what is the number one problem you solve? Guess what the number one answer I get? We should do this in Family Feud style. I should bring up Family Feud in the future. What is the number one answer I get when I ask a restaurateur, what problem are you solving? Guess what they tell me?
Hungry.
Hungry. I'm hungry. And I was like, restaurants do not solve the problem of hunger. Feeding America might be working on the problem of hunger. Restaurants are not, in my opinion. That is a peripheral problem, but it almost always shows up as the first problem that they're solving. Usually restaurants are solving, like, I would like a type of food that I can't make, I don't have access to, I don't have time. It's not convenient. My kids would like something different than what I'm cooking. I'm going on a date night. Those are all problems that are actually needing to be solved. Very rarely is it like, I am starving to death, I need to go to a restaurant. And so, but what happens is our minds go to like a fairly simple one. So that's why I say the least obvious ones might be the thing that becomes your value proposition. I think Snickers is the one company, I think they're like made a run at hunger, right? But they actually went with hangry, right? And they kind of made fun of it and did a whole thing with it and had that Betty White run, which was really a lot of fun there. Right. So keep going, because the first ones you come up with, yeah, they're problems you're solving, but honestly, they're probably problems everyone else is solving too. And I want you to get to the key. Dr. Lassiter says loneliness. What do you mean about that, doctor? If you can come off mute. Maybe not. That's okay. All right. Oh, can't get off mute. Fair enough. Well, I appreciate you being here nevertheless. All right. Potentially a problem that her business is solving. These are key. So, but keep going, because the ones that come later on tend to become the secret sauce where you go, aha, that's the one There you go. People like to be around other people. Yeah. Okay. Great reason to go to a restaurant. I don't want to, tired of eating alone at home by myself. I want to be around other people. Same reason we're going to the coffee shops. Okay. Now let's go to the next one, the problem implication worksheet. So now I want to know the problems. So I've listed out all these problems. Now I want to know the problems where I have a superior solution. Where the customer says, sure, but it's not worth the cost or hassle. I want you to list out 5 ways that the buyer is wrong. These, by the way, start to become your competitive advantage or uniqueness. Why is the buyer wrong that it's not worth the cost or hassle? Classic objection shows up early. Someone put it on the thing. What's your price? Like price, we haven't even talked about what I can do and what you're asking me to deliver. And you're asking about price. Normal for people to jump there because they may have had some type of emotional reaction to like, yep, that's my problem. I kind of like this person because they're talking to me. They're talking about my problem. But oh, wait, hold on. I don't want to get suckered into paying too much. Is this an infomercial? What's going on? Right? We get all these silly defenses that come up. So you got to figure out, start to write down where you have a superior solution. Why is your buyer wrong? We haven't even talked about competitors yet. This is just you having a discussion right now with your customers. So write those down. Okay. All right. Next one. This one is one of the more powerful ones. The competitive uniqueness worksheet. 3 or 4 categories here that you can be in. Where you're competitively unique, what your product or service does that no other product can do. Okay. Competitive advantage. One that you're demonstrably better than competitors, but maybe not unique. Maybe other people will do it too, but it's just not really all that common and it sets you apart. Okay. Competitive parity, table stakes. That's what everyone has to ante up in order to play in the game. Okay. Everyone in the space has to do this. I think it's one of the ones that getting food delivery during COVID. If you wanted to get food sold, you better figure out how to get a delivery platform, whether you deliver it yourself, do Uber Eats, do Grubhub, do whatever, right? That became industry standard in order to do that. You got to know where the parity is because sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot because the basic thing, we're not even doing the basic thing. We do some other cool stuff, but it didn't offer the basic thing that gets us going. And then I mentioned this before, we got to know where our competitive disadvantage is. Things that your product doesn't do, and it's probably your competitor's uniqueness. And it's okay. Our goal here is not to figure out how to do everything that everyone else is doing. We are not looking at this perspective by looking at other people. I think that's an impoverished mindset. We're looking at ourselves and the things that we do great. And everyone does something great today, whether you just got started or not. Okay. Everyone does something great. And what do you do that's unique? And write those out. There's more than one. So there's some space here to write several. Okay. You don't have to fill the whole box if you don't want to, make it big. All right. We talked about this, building the value prop. This is a repeat. So if you didn't write down all the points from the slide, you have that again. This is the process that we're going on. Okay, and then you get a whole nice long description if you're more like that on how to get your value prop. And then I'll have you type it out. But here's the deal. When you're done, this is a value prop exercise that I want you to try and build. It is for this particular customer who have this particular problem. Our product or service is the following that provides this unique problem-solving capability, unlike the alternative. You can basically turn your value prop into a sentence using the information that we already came up with, and it becomes a sentence. Is that 7 or 8 words? Nope. But this gives you a good framework to get started. And now I've started to dial in on, for these people. Now, usually, if you're already talking to your audience, you don't have to tell them, hello, Idea Collective members and other people who know Brent that probably found me on LinkedIn when I sent out the invitation, right? I don't need to say who this event is for because you're already here, right? But I want you always thinking about who is your customer. And a lot of times we even much as I said that was important, we forget that one right off the bat. You don't always have to talk about the problem, but sometimes you might want to. Like again, I said, look, if you feel like you are working your butt off but don't have enough to show for it, that's the problem that you feel. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm either spinning my wheels, I reached a plateau, I'm not getting where I want to, I don't have enough zeros in the end of that bank account or my monthly check or whatever it is you're trying to do. You may put that in there, but a lot of times you don't. A lot of times you're just going right at the laser. This is my value prop, where I help, how I provide. And if that resonates, let's get going. So that's essentially what we have here in the worksheet. So I want to pause and take any questions you might have in there. And while I take those questions, I will go find that link for you so that we can drop that in there. Open for questions, comments, and sarcastic remarks, as we love to do here in the IC.
Well, for me, you're inspiring clarity, so I'm good.
I thought you were going to stop with inspiring, Jamie. I was just going to be like, you're inspiring. I'm like, thank you. Oh, I can inspire clarity too. I'm good with that.
I like it. I recently learned that inspiring, the root word is like in spirit. Kind of interesting.
Ooh,
Mhm.
I like that. I like that. What else? Anything else standing out? Making sense, not making sense? Do it again. Okay. I see typing. So typing. Feel free to put it in the chat if you don't feel like coming off mute. That's totally fine. I respect that. All right. Here comes the link for those who are interested. You can go on and download it. And what I'd love to see, the last page there, by the way, which I didn't show you, this one is for the presentation that I'm doing tomorrow, which will be in longer form. But it's actually got a slide. It's going to talk about the pricing levels and pricing objectives. So some of that might not make as much sense, but for these purposes, you can ignore that last page because we didn't really cover that material. We may have covered some of that material in a different presentation that we can get you the link to, but that's where that's at. Well, if this makes sense, my firm challenge to everyone, if you do nothing else, at least start to come up with, Sean, I saw you come off mute. Did you have something you were going to share?
No, I didn't realize I was off mute.
Okay, there you go. Fair enough. So the one piece I'd love you to do is don't walk away and do nothing. I'm going to leave you with these 14 minutes left until 5 o'clock, which is what you signed up for. And I want you to just start noodling, download the sheet, start working on it. If you even got to have a general idea of what your value prop is, but start figuring out where you're unique, where you can serve, or even your best guess today. What do I think my unique value proposition is? Write it down. And then if you're not talking about that in the things that you do, the way you position your business, the way you market, the way you put stuff on your website, the way you're doing social media posts, etc., figure out how you're going to incorporate that. Because all of this learning is meaningless unless we put it into action, right? So that's what I want to encourage everyone to go out and do today. Put that into action, move a little bit further down the road, do download the worksheet, do work on it. If you have any questions, you know how to get some time with me. Find me on the IC, shoot me a message, throw me an email. Happy and honored to support everyone here. So with that, I'm Brent Halfwassen, Milwaukee Small Business Coach. Thank you for joining this Simple 60 workshop with the Idea Collective, brought to you by Quick Trip and Bank 59. And we'll talk to you next time. If you have any questions, stay on the line. I'm just going to stop the recording here.